Today on The Joy of Editing, it's TK Friday, and I'll be doing another full edit using the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. The title of this image is Lake of Tranquility. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Hey, it's TK Friday again, my favorite day of the week. I hope it's yours too. Today I'm doing an image that I call the Lake of Tranquility. I believe this was taken in the Derwentwater Lake District in UK. This image comes to us today by Andrew Watson. Thank you so much, Andrew, for the use of this image. You can go ahead and download this image as well as the PDF notes and give this edit a try. You'll find Dropbox links in the description below this video. You have to click on more to open up that description and scroll down through there and you will find the Dropbox links for the notes as well as the image. By the way, if you would like me to edit one of your images on a TK Friday, scroll down further in the description. You'll find a Contact Me link. Contact me and let me know. Well, let's get started. Here I am in Lightroom, and here's Andrew's image right out of the camera. This was shot with a Fujifilm X-T30, and this is what it looks like right out of the camera. And then after I do some editing on it, after I apply my linear profile for Andrew's camera, I just click auto, and Lightroom does a really good job of the initial process for me because I don't like to do too much processing here in Lightroom at all. I just make sure that my highlights and my shadows aren't clipping, and if they are, I'll pull my white and black points back. And then for detail, no noise reduction, just a little bit of sharpening on here. And also under lens corrections, remove chromatic aberrations. I checked that on as well as enable profile corrections. And I did a slight crop, as you can see right here, just a very slight minor crop. And then I just right-click on the image, go to Edit in Photoshop 2024, but I'm already there, and I'll see you there in a second. And now here we are in Photoshop, and you'll notice I have my TK9 CX panel opened up here for actions. I like to use it for my actions, depending on how much workspace you have in your computer. It's nice to be able to have all your panels opened up. So here's my actions, and here's my combo panel for all the buttons I need to use. Here's my multi-mask panel, and I have my TK Gen Fill panel right here. So I'm all set up and ready to get into the joy of editing this beautiful image. And by the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can save 15% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. Use my promo code DK15. That gets you 15% off of everything. Not only are you saving money, but you're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly when you use that promo code DK15. So thank you all for using my promo code. I really appreciate it. I always like to start off the edit with balance and contrast, and I'll show you what that is here in a second. But when I do that, it gives me a nice starting point for this edit. And I like to give balance and contrast to the foreground on an image like this on a landscape and the sky separately. And to do that, I need to save out a foreground channel, a sky channel, and I'll also save out a midtones 3 channel. And I use midtones 3 to protect me from clipping shadows and highlights, because I'll do the balance and contrast with a color grading tool. But first off, let's save out the channels. I'll be using my TK9 combo panel, but you could use a CX panel, whichever you prefer. They're both the same, they're just set up differently. You'll find this button right here. This will select the sky. This is a new feature to the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Hold your Command or Control key down and click the sky selection button, and it'll save that sky down in channels. That's pretty nice, right? And then if you hold the Command or Control key down again and double click this, it'll invert that sky selection and save it out as a foreground channel. And that saves you a lot of time. And now what I want to do is come up here to the TK9 multi-mask panel and click on the luminosity mask button. And remember, I told you I want to use the midtones 3, so I'm going to click midtones 3 to protect my shadows and highlights from clipping. That's all I use it for. And then if you find this button here, this will save that out as a channel, so we'll click this, and I'll just type in mids 3, and we'll click OK. And now you can see that saved out as a channel. Now I don't need the multi-mask panel anymore or this luminosity section, so I can just click X, and that just sets me back to the normal view of the multi-mask panel. And now let's have some fun with the mask calculator. Don't be afraid of the mask calculator. You'll find it's your best friend when you're using the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. It's so powerful. So what we're going to do first off is I'm going to grab a color grading tool, so you can come up to the multi-mask panel and click this button, and there's your color grading tool. And now it's time for the mask calculator. Now here's a feature to this mask calculator here. If you hold your Command or Control key down and click on this, it will keep this calculator open, which I want to keep it open for a little bit because I'm working on the sky in the foreground, and it makes sense to keep it open. We can always shut it at any time by clicking this X. So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing I want to do is work on the foreground. So I'm going to click on this foreground button. Now I need to apply this foreground as a mask to this layer right here. And to do that, see this button right here? If you click this button, it will apply that to the layer. You see that foreground mask? Pretty nice. And now I want to get a midtones 3 inside of this area. And to do that, this is so simple. Click on mids 3, and you'll notice we have an add, subtract, and X is for intersection. So what I want to do is intersect this mids 3 with this foreground mask. So if I click the X here, it's done. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? And now I'm ready to color grade. That wasn't so hard, was it? It was pretty easy. Hey, if you enjoy working with the mask calculators and the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, let me know in the comments section below. Okay, let's get on to the balance and contrast of the foreground here. Now this is a color grading tool. We can adjust luminance levels as well as color grade here with this color wheel. On the foreground, I won't do any color grading, but I will in the sky. So we'll start out here. I'm going to start out with midtones. So I'm going to take the midtones and open them up. I'm going to drag this to the right, and I'm going to take it over to right here at 42. And now I'm going to click on the shadow button. So we have shadows, midtones, and highlights. I'm not going to work with highlights here. Sometimes I do. I'm going to work with shadows. So I clicked on the shadow button. And now I just want to darken up my shadow. So I'm going to drag this to the left over to right here, minus 29. Now check it out. Here's my before. And here's my after, already off to a really good start. And next we're going to work on the sky. So now we need another color grading tool. Now I have a color grading tool right here, but it's set for this layer. So you see the plus right here? Click on the plus, and that adds another color grading tool. And our mask calculator is still open. Now this time, just to show you, you could do things differently here. Last time I started with foreground, and you think, well, maybe he'll start with sky. But you know what? No, I'm going to start with midtones 3. I could start with sky. It doesn't matter. But here, I'm already on midtones 3. So let me go ahead and click this button to apply it. And there's midtones 3, and it's living inside that layer mask. But now I need to only have that in the sky. So what do you think I would do here? Well, if you're thinking click on sky, you're moving in the right direction. So click on sky. Now what? If I click this button to apply, I'll get rid of my mids 3 and just have a sky mask. But if I click this X to intersect, let me go ahead and click it. You'll notice now I've intersected that mids 3 into that sky. So that's the power of the mask calculator. Now, I don't need the mask calculator anymore, so I can click this X button here to close it. For the sky, I'll just work with midtones and highlights, so I'll click on the midtones button first. And I'm going to use this new button here in TK9, and that is the picker tool for the color grading tool. So I'll click this, and what I want to do is select a tone up here in the sky, like right here, click this, and the color picker comes up, and just click OK. And you'll notice I color graded the sky, added a little bit more blue. If you want more blue, you can come this way and just come to a point, hover over it, and left click with your mouse and you'll add it there. But that's all I really want. But now I just want to darken up that sky a bit. So I'm going to drag this slider to the left. As you're dragging the slider, you don't see a change to, you release the left click of your mouse, then you'll see the change. I'm going to take it over to right here, 25. So check it out. Here's the before and here's the after. But isn't that nice, that little extra blue? Hey, and guess what? There's a moon over here. Interesting. So we're going to do something with that moon. We're going to have a little fun here, but that's coming up. Stay tuned. Okay, that was the midtones. Now I'm going to click on the highlight button, and I'm going to grab the picker again. And some of these lighter tones up in here, I'm going to click right there and sample that with the color picker. Click OK. And now I just want to lighten up those highlights a little bit. So I'm going to drag this slider to the right to right here. Plus 19. And you can see there's that color grading point right there. So here's my sky before and here's my sky after. And here's your overall before after button right here. So we started out here and now we're here. So already, wouldn't you say we're off to a good start? I'm going to employ that color grading tool again because it's such a great tool for this water. I'm going to use that picker to sample this watercolor here, and we're going to add a little bit more of that blue tone in there, but we're going to maybe darken it up a little bit. I'm going to grab a marquee tool, so it's this button here in the tool wheel, or you could type M for marquee. That shortcut will bring up the last tool you've used as a marquee, and depending if it's elliptical or whatever, but we want rectangular, so make sure you use the rectangular marquee tool. So I'm just going to select this area right like this. It's nice and straight. That's really all I need because I'm going to use a color mask here. Now right now I have the color grading tool, so we can click the X so we can see the multi-mask panel. Nothing will change here. Whenever you have a selection, you're going to see selection indicators around all of your panels. Now you can shut them on or off. I shut mine off on the CX and the combo panel. I have it turned on in the Gen Fill. That's the color line around here. So you have a choice. You can keep them on or off, but I like to have them because it lets you know when you do have a selection. So now we need to use our trusty mask calculator. Now the mask calculator will work in tandem with this button right here. This button right here is the My Channels button. So if you click it, you'll see all your different channels. And right now you can see I have active selection, layer mask, sky, foreground, and mids 3. Well, this is my active selection that I made with that marquee tool. So cool, I'm going to click on that. And the area represented in white is the selection that I made. And now I'm going to click on the mask calculator button here on the multi-mask panel. And I'm going to do an intersect because I want to intersect the blue color of that water into this area right here. So we're going to click X for intersection. Now I'll click this button to grab a color mask. So when I click on it, I get a color picker, as you can see. And what I want to do is get some of this blue tone down in the water, so I'll click right here and I'll click OK. And there you can see that, right? But I want to brighten that up a bit, so I'm going to take this slider right here. It's a brightness slider, and I'm going to drag it over to the right to right about here, to make it fairly light. That's good enough. And now I'll click equal to make the calculation. And now you can see it's only selecting blue tones. And now I want to output that to a color grading tool. So I'll click this button right here. And there's that mask right there. And now with this color picker, I'm going to click on it and sample. I get a message here. It says, you messed up. No specific tonal range chosen. I screwed up. I'll click OK. Because you got to click on a button. And I want to work on the midtone. So I'm going to click this button right here for midtones. And now I'll click on this button. And now I don't get that message. And now I will select one of these tones right here and click OK. And now I just want to darken that water up a little bit. So I'm going to drag this slider to the left to right here, -17. Now check it out. Here is my before and here's my after. And it's only affecting the water. So pretty cool. Gives me a nice closing off of the water down here at the bottom. And a little bit more saturation in that water by using that picker and selecting that tone right there. So again, here's my before and my after, but that looks really good. And next up, it's the moon. How cool is it to have a half moon in your image? Pretty nice, isn't it? Well, it's kind of small, but let's make it a little bit bigger. Not excessively bigger, but just a little bit bigger. So here's what I want you to do. See this button here on my combo panel? You'll find it on the CX as well. This button, when you click it, it stamps all your layers together into a pixel layer. In other words, everything we've done so far shows up here as an image. This is our edit so far. So here's what I want you to do. With that marquee tool, you can type M and your marquee tool will come up. And all I want to do is select this area right here. You see that? The size doesn't matter. Make sure you have a lot of space around the moon though. Now hold down your command or control key down and type your letter J, and that puts that up on a new layer. You see that? Now this layer right here, we can go ahead, highlight it by clicking on it and click on this trash can and it is gone. And now we have that moon on a separate layer here. So if I Option or Alt click right here, you can see there's the moon right there. See it? Now the job at hand is to make that moon larger. So what we need to do is come and click on the layer with the moon by itself, make it active by clicking on it, and then click on this button here. This is your transform button. And now you can see here is the bounding box around the area that we cut out and put on that layer. These are control points, handles that you can move around. But here's what I want you to do. If you hold down your Option or Alt key and click on any one of these handles here, it'll evenly size this moon, smaller if you move in this way or larger if you pull out this way, but it'll keep it right where it is. So check this out. See how I can move it and make it really large, but it's staying in that same position. Make it as large as you think it looks good in your image. I'm going to make mine about this size right here so we can see it. And now once we like it, you can click on this check here to accept that. And now you're going to say, well, Dave, that looks horrible. What the heck are you thinking? Well, not so fast. I'm going to fix it. Let me show you what we do next. All right, grab your trusty object selection tool. You're going to find it in your tool well. I'm going to click right here. My tool's set for rectangle, but you can click the drop down, change it to lasso, but I recommend use rectangle. And all I want to do is make a selection right around the moon like that, and it will select the moon. Now check this out. What we can do now is come over to your combo or CX panel and click this button right here. It will apply that as a mask right there. And now, look, we just see the moon. Isn't that cool? And now the moon is noticeably bigger, but it's in the same position in the sky. So pretty nice, right? I want to make it a little bit lighter. But first off, I'm on this layer mask right here. And so what I want to do is click on this on your properties panel. See this button right here? This is for layer mask. Click on that. And let's increase that feathering to right around like 5 pixels. I think that'll be good. Anywhere right around in there. There's 4.8. I think that'll be good. If you click this button right here, you can see there's that moon. See, there's just a slight bit of feathering on it. Click this button again, and now we're back to the image. But now what we're going to do, I have this color grading tool in the way right now. So click the X, nothing changes on any color grading layers. What I want to do is grab a curves adjustment layer, put it in the screen blend mode. Now when I do that, my whole image is going to get light. And now you're saying, now you've really gone too far, Dave. Well, not really, because what should I do next? Click on this button right here. It looks like a paper clip, and it just clips that screen blend mode only to that moon. Now it's way too light, right? So take this opacity the whole way off, and let's just turn it up a little bit. Turn up the light on the moon. We can do that. We have that kind of power here in Photoshop to like plus 15%. Now check it out. Here is the before and here's the after. But now we can really see there's a moon in this beautiful picture. Now, if you can figure out why I named this image the Lake of Tranquility, let me know in the comments section below. Let's click the before after button. So here is where we started, and now we're here. Now at this point, you could say, hey, we are done. We could throw a vignette around this image and call it a day, but hey, this channel is called The Joy of Editing, and we are not done yet. Let's go further here. The next thing I want to do is work on some of the reds and yellows that are in this background in this mountain area back here. I guess this is a mountain area. If not, forgive me for that. It might just be a hill. But let's see what we can do. I'll be working with colors, so I think I'm going to use saturation vibrance mask. I'll use a vibrance mask to find weaker colors. So we'll click this button right here, and we're going to work with vibrance. So here's vibrance 1. This is going to show me the weaker colors. Here's vibrance 2. Here's vibrance 3, and here's vibrance 4. I generally use a vibrance 4, but in this case, I think a vibrance 3 will give me more color here. So we'll use vibrance 3. We'll output it to a hue saturation adjustment layer. Now, if you notice, this is a drop down. It's on master for the entire color range, but if I click this drop down, I'm going to go to reds, and you'll notice I can take saturation and bring it up on the reds. You see that? So I'm going to bring up some of that red saturation to somewhere maybe right around here. And now I want to also work with yellows. So let me click on yellows, and let's see what we can do with the yellows. And I think there's more yellows here. Yeah, you can see that. So I'm going to bring the yellows up to maybe somewhere right about here. Now, check it out. Here is the before, and here's the after. But see that? That's looking pretty good. Now, let's go back to the drop down. Now, let's go to master. And now, let's just add a little bit more in the master to somewhere right about 15. Again, here's the before, and here's the after. But a little bit more life back in here. I really like that. Now, as I study this image, I would just like to burn down some of the shadow areas in the foreground area. And to do that, I'll use a zone mask. So I'll click on the zone mask button, and I'm going to go with the shadow tone back here, like right about here. Click that, and you can see it's right there. Click OK, and there's our zone mask. And all I want to do is take this slider to tighten up this selection and move it to the left just a little wee bit, just to tighten that up. Not much of the sky is selected, just a little bit over here, but we can go ahead and protect ourselves. Why not? Let's get a mask calculator. So we'll click on this button right here. I'll click X for an intersection. And now let's click on My Channels. And we want to work on the foreground, right? So we're going to click on Foreground. And now we have to click Equal to make that selection. And now we only have the foreground. And now we're going to output that to a burn tool. You could use the left side of the burn tool for 50% gray or the right side for transparent. Either side works. I'm going to use the left side. So I'll click right here. And now I have a burn tool. And you'll notice I have a selection. I'm burning through a selection. So it's controlling the areas that I'll be burning, which I chose with that zone mask. I'll use a lower opacity of like 10%. So I'm typing my 1 key. And I can be pretty liberal up here. So now I'm painting across here. Every time I lift my brush and paint again, it gets a little bit darker. So I'm painting across here. I lifted my brush. I'm going to paint again up in here, over in this area here, over the mountain, and down in here just a little bit. I'll make the brush a little larger. I can come across here. I haven't lifted the brush. I'm just painting all over this area right like so. And again, it's only targeting the darkest tones that I've selected through that zone mask. Let's take a look so far. Here's my before and here's my after. So before and after. I think I'll hit these tones down here a little bit more. I might make the brush a little bit smaller and, maybe just go over some of these waves in the water down in here. Make some of these a little bit darker just to add some texture. Okay, and again, that zone mask is protecting the areas that I'm getting. Okay, so let's check it out again. Here is the before, and here is the after. But take your time. I might come back up here a little bit and get a little bit more up in here, over in this area here. But again, I'm making a video, as I always say, and I don't have a lot of time here because you wouldn't want to watch me painting all these areas. But take your time and get it just right. Again, here's the before and here's the after. And I like that. I think that's good. Now, I just burned, but how about a little bit of dodging in some of these lighter areas in this image? Now, this is where you got to get brave here. This is going to be freehand. No mask to help us, so we're dodging without a net. Now, right now I have a selection. I need to get rid of that. So if we click this button right here on the combo, or you'll find that button in the CX panel, click it. Our selection goes away. You can see we have no selection indicator. I'm going to grab a dodge tool. You can get it off the combo or CX panel. And again, it has a left and a right side. Left is 50% gray. The right's a transparent pixel layer. So I'm just going to use the left. You can use either side. And this time, I'm going to start with 10%. And I'm just looking for light areas. And this is where you have to be an artist and say, what do I want to light up? And again, if you lift your brush and paint again, things get a little bit lighter. So just look for areas and think, what would look nice with a little bit of light zinging across them? See that? I'm just hitting some of these areas up in here, like over in here a couple times. Just giving it, as we say, a kiss of light. I painted 2 times here by lifting the brush. And now I'm painting over in here. But see how nice that little bit of light in there looks? And this is a lot of fun. And this is all part of the joy of editing, folks. So have a good old time here. And I'm going to also paint a little bit on these clouds and a little bit in the water here as well. But what I'll do is right now I'm at 10%. I'm going to type my 0, hold that down in 5. That gives you 5%. So I'm going to come up here and my brush is nice and soft. I'm just going to paint across here a couple times, maybe over in here. Some of these light areas up in the sky, but I don't want to go too overboard. But down here in the water, see the light areas? I'm just going to give them a little kiss of light just to add a little bit of interest down here. Again, that adds to that texture. This is just freehand, and it's fun to freehand these things sometimes. This is where, again, you can use your artistic license, and we all have those licenses that we can use, Whenever you get Photoshop, I remember Bob Ross used to say, whenever you buy your first box of paints, and you want to start painting, you're handed an artist license. Well, whenever you get Photoshop, you're handed an artist license. So you can do whatever you feel like doing on your image. It's all up to you. You're the artist. You're the creator. So I'm just doing a little bit there. Now let's check it out. Here is the before. Just look for things to light up. Here's before, and here is after. You see that before and after. And I might even come up here and just throw a little bit of light up in here in certain areas. Not everywhere, and this takes a little practice and patience, but a little bit of light. It just adds some interest to your image. Again, here is the before and here is the after. Before and after. And if you've gone too strong, you'll always have this opacity. You can take it off and just build it up slowly. But I'm going to leave it up at 100% so you can really see it. I paused the video. In this area right here, I think I'm a little too strong, so I'm going to grab my gray brush, because remember, I'm using a 50% gray layer. And with that 5%, I'll make this brush a little larger, and I can just paint across here and just tone that down and blend that in. The gray brush is really nice for doing that if you use the left side there. So check it out. Here is the before and here is the after, before and after. Okay, what is next? Well, this is a landscape image, and the top of this image, the sky, I want to keep my viewer into the frame, so I'm going to do something that I call closing off the top of the image, and that's just slightly darkening the top. And to do that, I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer, get a black mask to hide what I'm going to do, because I'm going to change my blend mode to multiply, which will darken. And then what I want to do is grab my gradient tool, so click this button right here. And if you click right here where this drop down is, let's click right here, and that's black to white. But that's the opposite of what I want. So make sure you have reverse checked. So if you don't, the top of the image will stay the same, but the bottom of the image will get darkened, which you want the opposite of that. Make sure your light is on the left-hand side. And now you can just click outside the canvas and drag down. Now hold your shift key down to constrain that to going straight. And I'm going to pull it down to like right about here. Now I'll release the left click of the mouse. And then you see this diamond right here. You can adjust this, kind of like a window blind, right? Or window shade, and maybe to somewhere right about there. And now that's way too strong, so what we're going to do is take the opacity, let's take it the whole way off, and we're going to build it up slowly. And when I get to, say, right about here, 43, 44%, that looks good. Now if you don't want to see this line right here, you can click on the icon for the curves adjustment. So check it out. Here's my before and here's the after. See how that closes that off? And it's already kind of closed off down here when I did that darkening of the water at the bottom, when I gave it a little bit of blue saturation, and that was back on this layer right here. Let me shut this layer off. You can see that where it's darker? Okay, so the top's closed off and the bottom's pretty much closed off. But next what I'll do is add a vignette over the entire image. And for that, I'll use a TK action. So my CX panel has my actions already opened up for me. So I'm going to click on vignette. You have two vignettes. You have a regular basic vignette that I like to call it, and a freehand vignette, which is really powerful too. And I've used that in past TK Friday videos, but this time I'm just using a basic vignette for this image. It's all it needs. So I'll click on this, and a Gaussian blur dialog comes up, and a radius is picked for you. I just usually accept it just the way it is. It's usually perfect. Click OK. Now here's my vignette. Here's my before and here's my after. But I don't like to stop there. So I like to use like Edit Blend If here to protect my shadows. And I have a little bit of highlights in these clouds over here that I want to protect. So what I'll do is protect highlights and shadows, meaning my lightest lights and my darkest darks. Click on the Edit Blend If button, and I'm going to click on No Darks 1. And when I do that, you don't see much of a change here. But if I uncheck this gray here, just watch down in this corner, it's protecting my darkest darks. See that? See that little bit of a change? Okay, I can only choose one of these buttons. In other words, I can't have No Darks 1 and also No Lights 1. I can have one or the other. But if I click right here, you'll notice this number, see where it says 0, 80, and at the right it says 255, 255 for the highlight on the right side. So 80. So if I take 255 minus 80, I come up with 175. So if you take this top slider and drag it to the left and drag it till you hit 175, or as close as you can get to it. But notice when I move that top slider, both of those sliders move together. That's important. And now continue to hold that top slider and drag it to the right, and you will feather that. And see, it's protecting the brightest highlight. So that's basically a No Lights 1. So that's how I get this. But I'm right now at a 174, which is honestly close enough. So that's just protecting these highlights over here. So here is the before, and here's the after. Now, if I uncheck gray, see if you can see these lights staying light over here. You may or may not see it. Here's before, and here's after. I can see it. It's protecting the lightest lights. So that is my vignette. I have one more thing to do, but this last thing is really powerful, and that is working with color luminosity. So we're going to click this button right here, this action, color loom for color luminosity. Click it, and you get a black and white adjustment layer. It's in a luminosity blend mode, but Tony, when he created this, all these sliders give you no change here. Notice when I shut this off, you'll see no change in the image whatsoever, but I can come and work on all the different tones here, work on my reds, yellows, greens, cyans, and so on, and that lets me lighten or darken every one of those colors. So we'll start out with red. So what I want to do is take my reds and darken them up a little bit. So what I'll do is drag this to the left, and I'm going to go right here, -7. And now we're going to work on the yellows, and I think I want to lighten up the yellows a little bit to right about here. And now we're going to go to greens, and I think I want to lighten up my greens, and I'm going to take those right here. And next, cyans. So let's see what I want to do with the cyans. I want to darken up the cyans a little bit right to here. And now we're going to go to the blues, and I want to darken up the blues just slightly. Right there. And now magenta, I'm not going to touch it because there's not much magenta in here, but check it out. This is a big change here. Here's the before, and here is the after. Isn't that nice? Again, the before and the after. And now let's take a look at the overall before. So I'm going to click my before after button. Here's the before. We started here and now we end up here. Now, if you feel this blue is a little too strong, I actually like it, but we're all different, right? Some of you may say, well, that blue is way oversaturated, Dave. Here's all you need to do. Let's X out of Edit Blend. If here nothing changes here, we can go and add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Click on this target tool, and then you could find a blue that you want to ease back on, like up here in the sky. So click and drag this to the left, and you can pull that blue back and make it as blue as you want. You can even make it bluer if you want, but whatever you want, you can do that. In my case, I like it the way it is, so I'm just going to shut this off. But there you go. You have a choice. After all, it's your edit. You can do with it as you please. Well, there it is, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to a close. Thank you, Andrew, for the use of your image. And don't forget, download the image and the PDF notes and give this edit a try. If you enjoyed today's full edit tutorial, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon, and also click all for all notifications. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I will see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing!